Doc Allie here today to interview a very special guest, Dr. Gayla Dillard. Dr. Gayla Dillard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Gayla Dillard, and I'm a general surgeon, and I'm located in Georgia, Conyers, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta.
Okay. And so if you guys are wondering, why did I bring Dr. Dillard on the phone today? It is because I am a third year medical school student, and the options, the varieties of specialties out there are endless, right? So by the end of third year, you usually have to figure it out what it is you actually want to do. And it's not okay to really just have a narrow mind, because when you start off in medical school, you can have one thing in sight and then decide later on through clinical rotations or whatever it is that that's not really what you want anymore. So we are going to explore the different specialty fields so that we can all get a better idea of what's out there and what each specialty has to offer. So, Dr. Dillard, let's talk about medical school for you and what specifically led you into surgery.
Okay, that's a loaded question, but I'm one of those lucky children who I did really good in school. I grew up in Kansas, and all the schools in Kansas were really top notch. We didn't have any private schools. They were like, really academic in Topeka, Kansas. And I loved math and science. And all my life, I was chasing animals and dissecting dead animals that got hit in the street, and it would terrify my mother. But I when I first started out, I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian because I liked animals. And then went to high school. Of course, math and science I just love. And I started leaning more toward people. So I entered Kansas University, which was 30 minutes from my house. And back when I went to school, if you went to an in-state school, it was really cheap. Both of my parents were just working class. No one had even gone to college. So when I told everybody I wanted to be a doctor, they thought that was interesting.
Mhm.
This was back in I graduated from high school in 74. So that's a long time ago. So this is interesting. When I went to Kansas University and told everybody I wanted to be a doctor, they thought that was kind of funny. But I chose biology because I love biology and animals. So I was a biology major. And then I just took the pre-med, and it's the same now. You take the pre-med classes. And I applied to both Kansas University, which is, where I went to college, and Meharry. Meharry accepted me right away. I'd never really left Kansas or done anything. And I said, I'm going to go to Meharry. And then Kansas University accepted me later, but I decided to go to Meharry. And that was like such a great decision. I met so many friends, and it's kind of a small ethnic medical school. They really took time with us and nurtured us. So that's kind of the short course.
Mm-hmm. And then what experiences at Meharry, or what was it that led you into surgery?
The surgery. Okay, that's a good question. And when you called me, I thought that this is really a good thing that you're doing, because I didn't have access to talking to different specialists. Basically, the first 2 years, and I don't know if it's the same now, it's all basic science. And of course, I love school, and I can memorize stuff. And actually, I graduated #1 in my medical school class because I have a really good memory. Basic science, is like anatomy, biochem, that sort of stuff. So I loved it. Then the second 2 years, we rotate on a bunch of different specialties. And I laughed when you told me about pediatrics, because I felt the same way. And when I started my clinicals, I go, my parents are going to kill me, but I don't like any of this stuff. And finally, I think later in my third year, I rotated on surgery, and it was like, wow, this is it. So I can't tell you. It's just, I think it's so good to rotate with different doctors. Now, again, you can't rotate with everything because there's so many, but you kind of know what you enjoy. You know, if you don't like peds, don't rotate on that later and that sort of thing. I just rotated on surgery and just loved it because, and here's the reason, I'm doing something with my hands. The patients are asleep. And when surgery is successful, you eliminate pain, take out a bad organ. It's like immediate gratification, if that makes sense. Is that you understand what I'm saying? It's like it just hit for me. That was it.
Okay.
And then you have to ask more questions, more leading.
Yeah. So once you fell in love with surgery, you applied to residency. What would you say? What's the daily life for a surgeon like? Like, what is the day-to-day schedule?
Right. That's a good question. Now, applying for residency back then as a Black female was interesting. There weren't any. Mm-hmm. And to help pay for medical school, after my first year, I joined the Army. So every summer I'd have to go, work in the Army. And so I applied for Army residency. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, I got accepted at Fitzsimmons in Denver as a surgical resident. And I was the first female ever in that program. I think I was the second minority. There was a Black surgeon a couple of years ahead of me. So can you imagine, here I am with the only female there. And I'm telling you, it was grueling. I would go, I think they have hours for surgery now. They don't work you more than 80 hours a week. Literally, I would come in Monday morning before the sun came up to make rounds, change dressings, draw blood, get all the labs. Then the attendings would make rounds. Then we would go in surgery, and we would have to hold retractors for the first 3 years. They might let you sew an incision closed or do a hernia with the chief resident later. So basically, you're holding retractors for 3 years. And then you don't see the sun because after surgery all day, you're making rounds, changing dressings again, getting patients ready for surgery the next day. And every other night, there were only 2 of us a year. We would spend the night in the hospital. So I would go from Monday morning till Saturday. I can remember walking outside in the sun going, wow, it feels good out here. But it's not that bad now.
Like, what's the transition once you get out of residency, which has seemed to be very grueling, and then you finally transition into your career? Does the schedule ease up a little bit?
Yes. And nowadays, surgeons come out and either join a practice or they become an employee. We're like the old dinosaurs, me and a few other old surgeons, where we came out and opened our own practice. What I did after the Army, I joined a group that was close by. I was stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then I there was a urologist that was in Conyers, Georgia, that had a urology office. He's independent. And he just said, if you want to come to Conyers and do surgery, you can. So when you first come to town, it's kind of hard because no one wants somebody operating on them that, just came to town. Mm-hmm. So you take emergency room call. And then when somebody comes to the emergency room, they have to take who's on call unless they know, another surgeon. So that's how I built my practice. So after time, people would say, oh, you took my son's appendix out and I've got a breast cancer. So I want you. And at first it was slow, and I would work emergency rooms on the weekends to make ends meet. And I also worked at Morehouse School of Medicine. They didn't have a residency program then. So the attendings would come and spend the weekend in-house to, get patients for the residents. They didn't have a residency program. So I did that kind of stuff to make ends meet until my practice built. So some people don't want to wait and start out really low and not make much money. They want to come straight out and make a big salary. And even now I look at some of the salaries, they go, we need a general surgeon in Wisconsin and we're starting out at $400,000 a year. It'd be hard for me as a newly finished resident to say, oh no, I'm going to hang my own shingle and struggle, you know. So that's what I did. And that, I guess there might be a few of us left out there that just have our own practices, but so.
So then my question, because I hate to go backwards, but I do want to ask, when you were going through the really grueling residency time, what kept you going? How did you keep gunning for your goals?
You're going to think this is funny, but I was one of the rare, me and another girl in my class got married in medical school. I had one child in medical school, another one when I started residency, and then 3 more after I started my practice. So I love family, and that's what kept me going. I've got class. So one bit of advice for a female, because it's easy for men, they just get married and, you know, they go to work. You have to have family. I mean, that's that. And now I have grandchildren. It's like, what a blessing. It's just, that kept me going. Family, I think.
That's lovely. So if you had to weigh it out, would you be able to give us 3 pros and 3 cons to going into surgery?
Yes. The pros for me are when people get well. And it's almost, and I tell all my children, my grandchildren, find out what God made you to do, and you'll know it when you find it. So surgery is not like work to me. It's like a blessing that I'm able to take care of people. Another pro is income. I'm independently, you know, I make my own money and, you know, that sort of thing. And it pays well. Another pro for me is I always have job security. You know, it's like during COVID, I mean, you know, it's job security. I watched so many people suffer losing their jobs, and, you know, especially the entertainment and food industry. So it's job security. You're doing something you love and you're helping people. You're just doing what God made you to do. Con, time. I think that my 2 older girls, they go, Mom, we hardly remember you except coming in, you know, kissing us to go to bed. I had to hire help a lot. Husbands are sometimes. I probably could have done better, but I had to hire help. And in fact, I had a live-in when I moved to Georgia, a live-in lady that helped. So maybe your children might, you know, suffer a little bit, but they're all fine. You know, they know. Another con would be when you lose somebody. Oh, another con is malpractice. We're expected to be 100%. So the malpractice is costly and stressful. I've been sued. Let's see, I've never had to go to court though. I think 2 times I've had something happen. And so, and the court system takes years. You'll get a suit and it takes years for them to even, you know, come to it. So I think that's the worst thing. And our society is so litigious now. We have to have 100% outcome. Well, I guess airplane pilots need 100% outcome. Also, I was going to say we're not the only profession that it has to be 100%. But that would be a con. Time with family, malpractice. What else did I say? Did I say something else? What's that? Losing patients, right? Yeah. So that's about the main cons I can think of. But I love doing it. It's so satisfying.
I'm actually looking forward to surgery. We'll see if I get the same love that you had.
Right. Well, GYN is surgery. It's in a certain area.
Right.
Right.
Okay. I always like to conclude with this. If you could talk to your younger self, what would be the advice you would give her?
The advice I would give her would be, don't be so intense. I mean, it's like when I was in medical school, I wanted to be number 1. You know, it's like I'm so competitive, and I think that would be the advice. Just take it easy, enjoy, because I tend to be like, you know, focus,
Mhm.
and I think but I can't say I would give my younger self if I didn't have children or family, because I have two colleagues at Meharry that never got married and had children, and they really say, oh, and you don't have to have them, you can adopt,
Right.
yeah. So I have a daughter that's an attorney, and she just started a big job. She goes, oh, I'm getting older, and I don't know if I said, you don't have to. And another thing, a girlfriend of mine froze her eggs. They're
Mhm.
frozen so she can do a surrogate sometime. But you just have to have
Right.
family, even if it's um, nephews and nieces. You just need to
Mhm.
be surrounded by family. That's the main thing. So
So have family always around you and
right.
relax.
Yes, yes, that's serious. Yeah,
Okay.
and have faith that God's leading you where you're supposed to go, and ask God, what did you make me for?
Right.
He said, take care of my sheep. And I said, on my tombstone, I think I'll say that I took care of your sheep, because that's what he wants us to do. And it's so satisfying when you take care of somebody. I just can't explain how you take a cancer out and they're cancer free. Or if
Mhm.
I do a breast biopsy and I call them and go, Miss Smith, there's no cancer there. It just makes me cry. So
Aw.
yeah, so it's just so good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Diller, for all of your
Okay.
helpful insights. You've definitely been an inspiration, and I hope you can
All right.
inspire other little girls. And
Right.
that's what I want this
Mhm.
channel for, the representation. I didn't have this growing up, but it's so
Right.
wonderful now to be able to see it and be able to
Yeah.
share it with others.
I
So,
wish I had somebody to talk to, because when I
right.
said I was going to the surgery, they thought that was hilarious.
Mhm.
I said, okay, whatever.
But
So,
you showed them.
right. All right. Well, just call. You have my number. If you want me to talk to some of your classmates, that's fine.
Of
All
course.
right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. I'll save your number.
Okay.